to part 2 of making Belle's gold skirt. Sorry it's taken such a long time to get part 2 out. It's been very difficult to make. I just want to give a pointer. Halfway through this video you'll see us doing this waistband and incorporating the organza layer into the skirt, and we actually had to make another skirt afterwards because we wanted to make the valance on the bottom, and we tried numerous ways of attaching the valance just to the inside of the skirt. It didn't seem to be working, so in the end we had to make another skirt like so. I've just turned it inside out here where we attached the valance to. So what I'd recommend is when you come to do your waistband and you incorporate the layers together, I would recommend incorporating the skirt if you are going to make a valance for yours, and then you can incorporate all 3 skirts into the waistband. And we didn't find this out until after we'd done it, so I just wanted to point that out before the tutorial starts. And I hope you enjoy the progress of us making this dress.
Right, this has been such a difficult dress to make that we've actually had to try different ways of turning the panels up at the bottom, because we couldn't seem to get our scallops even all the way around. Some of the panels were longer than others, and so we couldn't get a uniform length of panel. So what we've decided to do, and we're going to have a try at, is I took a level measurement using the pins about 6 inches off the floor, and then what we did was actually undo the last bit of sewing where it was all ruffled up and where we put the piping in between. I want to get the ruffles exactly the same length and achieve exactly the same ruffles. So what I did was I measured each of these panels to see which one was the shortest, and taking that measurement I'm now going to measure from the pin. The shortest distance I found was 19 centimetres for each panel. So I'm going to take a measurement from the pin and measure out 19 centimetres, and then take a measurement from the pin on that side at 19, and then just join those up with a bit of tailor's chalk, and then cut that off straight. So every single panel now should have a loose piece of 19 centimetres. So hopefully when we go on to the next stage we'll be able to have equal scallops on the panels. Okay, this was our biggest problem, getting all the panels level, but now that I've cut off the bottoms equally, as you can see, every single panel now is just about touching the floor after we've taken that last bit of ruffle out and straightened all the panel pieces. Okay, what we're going to do now is to put some 1-inch pleats going down to the bottom of the panels. I'll just move that out of the way for now and do 1-inch pleats like so, finishing with the last pleat pointing up towards the top of the dress, and just put a pin in there for now, so that's what it will look like when it's done. There's the other pleat, and those are the pleats pointing downwards, and then that will create your swag. Difficult to appreciate the height from where I am. be able to see from the film that they're all pretty uniform now. Okay, this is our pleating now that we've turned up on both sides, and now we've got to sandwich the piping back into the pleating. So lay your piping down one side. You can now take that pin out, you don't need it, and starting right at the top, put some back stitches right up against the piping without leaving any gaps. I could do this on the sewing machine, but by the time I've set up the sewing machine I could quite easily have just hand sewn it. It only takes a few stitches to put this back in. When you get to the bottom, do a few over stitches to hold it firmly in place. Right, so now that we've done one side, we can take that pin out, get rid of it. Now we're going to do the other side, which is a little bit more complicated. So turn the whole thing over, put it up against the piping and make sure it's level, both sections are level, and make sure that all your pleats are together. Now what we're going to do is just run a few more back stitches up against the piping. You can feel with your fingers where the piping is, so put your back stitches as close to the piping as you can and try and get through as many layers as you can and catch that piping. Just do a few over stitches first to start the row. Okay, so feeling with your fingers, we're going to go back along this seam and sew in the piping as we go. I'm going to get rid of that pin now, don't need it. I'm feeling with my fingers all the time where the piping is inside the seam. I'm going to keep going until I've sewn in the last part of that pleating. Just go a few stitches above it onto the seam, feeling for the piping all the time, and put your sewing right up against the piping edge. Then to finish, just do a few more over stitches. Off, and this is what it looks like when you're finished opening up the seam. You've now sewn the piping into the seam like so. Okay, this is the bottom of the panel, and now that we've sewn the sections back together with the piping in between, we're now going to conceal the piping and get rid of it. So we'll go to the inside, and I'm just going to take the seam from one side like that, pull the piping to the inside like that along the seam, and now I'm just going to put a few stitches to attach the piping to the seam. I'm going to go up about 5 centimetres, and then it will be finished off and then cut. Okay, I finished sewing that into the seam, and I'm just going to cut across there like that. Turn it over to the right side, and that's the finished piece. Before we put this skirt together onto the waistband, we're also going to have to create a light floaty top layer. So we're going to use white silk organza, and what I've done is doubled a 5-metre length. This is approximately 43 to 45 inches wide, and I'm going to create a 360-degree skirt. So, taking my top point, I'm going to measure 43 inches and then create a circle out of the 2 layers, going around, each mark being 43 inches, and then this will be cut out and sewn together. After cutting out the circles, the next step is to put a scoop into the middle, like so, and you want it just big enough to go inside the waistband without too much excess left over. And then you need to sew these 2 edges together to create 2 seams.
Okay, I've gone and sewn down the edges of my organza skirt, and we've just used the overlocker on the edge. But you can do it either way. You can sew on the ordinary machine, or if you do have an overlocker, it works just as well. And basically that's just the half. I've got my waist in the middle there. I've attempted to open out the whole of the skirt, but it's bigger than the living room. But just to give you an idea, that's the waist in the middle, little circles, and this is it all spread out. Now next thing to do will probably just give it a quick iron, and then I've got to put gold trimming on the outside of it.
Okay, this is showing the overlay actually put over this skirt temporarily. As you can see, I haven't actually sewn the skirt up the back seam yet, so I'm just showing you now what the overskirt looks like. And I'm going to put an 8-inch zip into the skirt itself at the centre back. So I cut down a 7-inch slit into the overlayer, as you can see, just temporarily, until we come to actually putting the waistband on, and both the skirt and the overlayer are going to be put into the waistband together. Okay, I've now cut out a strip for my waistband, which is approximately 3 inches wide and 27.5 inches long, which is just a little bit longer than the actual waist measurement, because we want a slight overlap to fasten it. And we're also going to use a piece of Petersham to give it some strength, which will be cut approximately 1 centimetre short at both ends. Okay, here we have the skirt panels, and this is going to be the waist, and I've made sure that my panels measure 24.5, which is Tracy's waist measurement. Add another 1 inch to allow for seams and put in the zip in. So the final measurement I want is 25.5 inches. I'm going to find the halfway point and put a pin in. And this is going to be my waistband, and I want it to be a centimetre over, so approximately 26 inches by the time that is finished, and I want an overlap at this end to put my fasteners on. So I'm going to transfer that mark to here, so I know that is my halfway point on my waistband. The halfway point is. Okay, this is the overlay skirt at the waistband. I've cut a circle out of that. That is just long enough to go around the waist with a little bit left over, so about 25.5 inches. And I'm going to use an 8-inch zip, so I've cut a slit here of about 7 inches for now, while I just put it onto the waistband. It gives me a little bit of extra room to play with. So we're going to find the halfway point at the front, and then we're going to line that up with the halfway point where I put the zip on, and then we're going to pin and tack this in a straight line, actually straight onto the skirt. To put the overlay on, I found it better for Tracy to actually wear the skirt, and then I've pinned the overlay to the top of the skirt all the way around. Okay, the first thing I did before I actually put the overlay on was to cut a straight edge of my skirt, and now the overlay has been tacked on. I've had it tacked in 2 places just to hold it so that none of the seams come undone. I wasn't really too bothered about the end bit where the zip is going to go, because that's all going to go into the seam, but there it is at the moment. For the zip, we've chosen an 8-inch invisible concealed zip. The difference in the zips is that you cannot actually see the teeth at the front, so you know it's an invisible zip. And we're now going to put this onto the edge of the skirt, and it's going to go on the 2 layers, the skirt and the overlayer. It's going to be a little bit awkward, all this ruffling, but I'm sure it shouldn't be too difficult. So we're going to open the zip, turn the zip upside down, and then we're going to put this edge starting at the top, and then we're going to pin and tack it to the edge, making sure that we put the overlayer in with that as well. So near the edge, going to be a little bit difficult, as I say, with the ruffling, but it can be done. And then we're going to pin and tack that on.
Okay, I've now turned the skirt around to help you have a better look at what I've done. There we have this part of the zip on the left of the skirt, and I've pinned and tacked it down in the middle because you're going to be sewing right next to the teeth on the zip. So this is the top of your skirt, and this is at this point what it should look like.
There's our zip sewn down along the edge, and to make it easier for me, I've actually turned the skirt now inside out. And earlier on I described how I'd cut the slit of the overlay down to 7 inches. I've now extended that to 8 inches to the bottom of my zip, so I know exactly now where the opening has to finish. And now we're going to attach the zip to the other side of the skirt, making sure that we put the overlay in as well at the same time. So, a bit fiddly this. You take your zip, okay, so now you take your zip, and it's got to be fitted on this side, and now I'd like to keep the piping showing if I can. So put your zip, I'm going to put the zip this side of the piping so that when the zip is actually sewn in, I'll still have the piping showing. And make sure that you've put the overlayer up together as well with the zip, and this will be pinned and tacked down and then sewn in. Okay, we now put the zip in, and I've gone as far as the end of the slit for the overlay, so now we want to get that out of the way. And the next step will be to sew the two seams together, going all the way down to the bottom of the panels, like so.
So that'll complete sewing up the back of your skirt.
Yes. Okay, this is the top of the skirt, and now we're going to put the waistband in. This is our zip on the edge. Now take your waistband with the right side towards the dress and overlap it at the zip by about ½ inch. Let's pin that in place. And because we've straightened out the skirt in an earlier application, sorry, we can now line up the waistband and pin that on, going all the way across, like so. Pin it all the way across the top of the waistband, and then we'll be ready for tacking. Okay, this is showing the waistband now sewn to the skirt, the top layer. What we're going to do now is to do the waistband. So turn it to the inside, like that, and get your stiffener. You want to line it up with the end of your zip, and I'm going to put it underneath there, right up against the sewing that you've just done for your waistband. So it goes, tucks right up close. I want it to go down as far as zip, like so. Then we're going to do a few actions at the same time just to start it off. The first thing is you're going to neaten the edge. So bring that over, around the zip. I'm just going to put a pin there temporarily, just to hold it. Like that. Make sure that your stiffener is right up against your sewing. Then we're going to bring this.
Sorry, move your hand out of the way. Just okay. Yeah.
Okay. Then we're going to bring this down over your stiffener, very tight. I'm just going to put a pin there temporarily, just to show you what I'm going to do. Like so. So you've pulled that all the way down. This is what it looks like on the other side. And then the next step will be to turn under that edge, like so. Put it up against the line of stitching, put a pin in that to hold it. And what you will be doing now is hand stitching. So you'll carry on to the end first, pushing the stiffener right up against that sewing inside. Pull your waistband over tight, secure it, turn under that piece, and put a pin there, just one pin, like so, and that will be neatened as well. That, and you'll do that all the way along your waistband, and that's how it will
Okay, after we pinned our band earlier at the top and bottom like you were just shown, the ends are actually still open, so we've tidied those and tucked them in and put a pin there, and I've had to sew by hand these little stitches down the edges to seal the two ends together, and then I started working along the bottom doing a little catch stitch along to actually anchor this bit to the band so it looks like that, all nice and tidy. And you've got to try and explain this. Catch a little bit from the bottom of the fabric, then go up a little tiny bit to your band without going through to the other side, like so. So you're going slightly, doing little like diagonal stitches, trying to make them as small as possible. So there we go, I'm going in just a little bit, lifting that top piece of fabric up, then going up through the bottom like so. So in, then up there like that, being careful, as I say, not to go through the back. And I'm going to do that all the way along the band right to the end, and then sew up the other side when I get there.
This is showing now the finished waistband on its skirt. Just go around to the back here. I'll just put a temporary pin in at the moment, but we'll put a couple of hooks and eyes onto that to hold it secure when it's on. Sewn up the middle, sewn up the panel at the back, like so.